Hailey's on It is a new TV series on Disney Channel taking the place of The Owl House, which unfortunately just aired its final season, and a lot of people are already calling it Rick and Morty for Disney girls, but I wanted to check it out for myself and see what exactly was going on. Hailey's on It opened with Hailey and her best friend Scott trying to rescue an animal from a radio show that uses him to pick out their winners. This indicates that Hailey is really adventurous, but she reveals she's actually new to this kind of thing, and we flash back to New Year's Eve when everything changed for her. Back then, Hailey was too much of a perfectionist to get anything in particular done. She has a to-do list that she started in the first grade, but has ended up doing nothing on it, so she decides to make this the year that she does them all. Suddenly, a robot comes to try and steal Hailey's notebook, but it's saved by a purple-haired woman claiming to be Hailey from the future, who has checked off every item on her list and has come back to make sure that young Hailey does the same. Future Hailey claims that by completing the list, Hailey eventually saves the world, but completing the list is required to do it first. Future Hailey claims that she will go on to reverse climate change in particular, and that it's a big snowball ending that comes from winning a small prize after completing her list. But the big issue is that one item on the list is something Hailey wrote back in the 5th grade, that she would kiss her best friend Scott. Hailey tells Scott about future Hailey, who they end up calling the Professor, and together they start doing all the things on Hailey's list, though of course she leaves out that she needs to kiss Scott by the end of the year. Back in the present, Hailey ends up saving that squid, item 195 on her list of things to do. In addition to Scott, Hailey also has the help of a cute AI teddy robot named Beta who was left behind by the Professor, but this cute little robot keeps pushing Hailey to kiss Scott to get it off of her list faster. Hailey admits she still thinks about being more than friends with Scott, but she still wants to remove the kiss from her list out of embarrassment. Trying to remove that from the list, however, quickly causes a rip in space-time, which, even if reversed, can allow for more chaos bots to come in and try and stop her from completing the rest of the list, preventing her from solving climate change in the future. Hailey puts off the kiss by trying another item on her list, which is surviving every single ride at a theme park, something she had done last year until the Gravitron, where she ended up puking. Along the way, Hailey and Scott do a lot of traditional theme park rides, which turns a bit romantic. However, they end up on the final ride with Hailey worried she's going to throw up in front of Scott, which could potentially ruin the future chances of her and him kissing. There, they end up meeting Christine, who is the biggest sweetheart in the world, but someone Hailey just can't stand. Probably my favorite moment in the show was when Christine asked what Hailey thought about her scarf, and Hailey pretended to hate it, but clearly loved it. Christine ends up filming Hailey for her vlog, innocently, but something that makes Hailey even more nervous. Hailey loses her fear when a chaos bot slips through the time folds and ends up trying to destroy the ride. Hailey finds her bravery here, probably taking inspiration from seeing her future self stop one from destroying their journal. By seeing that this is reality, Hailey is able to do it herself, and in her desperation to save others, she realizes that she is capable of just about anything. However, because they didn't do one last ride, Hailey can't check this off her list, as while the Gravitron was the one she feared the most, there was a new ride added to the park, a Tunnel of Love. Hailey wants to do it solo to avoid something awkward and romantic with Scott, but he insists on riding with her to complete the mission. Hailey ends up surviving the ride, but works up the courage to talk to Scott about her feelings afterwards. However, Christine cuts her off before she can and asks Hailey if she can ask Scott out, since Hailey insisted earlier in the episode that they weren't a couple and never would be. Scott, oblivious to Hailey's feelings, especially since she said it would never happen, agrees to date Christine and even appears in her vlog with her. This causes such a ripple in time that chaos bots slip through again, causing Hailey to go on a big action hammer-smashing adventure to destroy them. The episode ends with Hailey not getting the kiss, but being determined that she will somewhere down the road, even though her teddy Beta says that she has a very slim chance. After destroying the robots, however, Hailey feels like she can once again do anything, setting up a long-term arc that will have lots of fight scenes against robots, hopefully, adventures to check off on her list, and drama to have with Christine getting closer to Scott. So this was a half-hour-long premiere, but all the future episodes will be 2 11-minute segments. This gave the first episode some nice extra room for exposition, but allowed for the next episode to run through 2 more stories for this premiere, really helping us get acquainted with the characters. This multi-episode approach seems to be the plan for future releases as well, with future releases being multi-episode drops of varying lengths. The first segment of the second episode focused on Hailey winning a fish taco contest using special ingredients between her and Scott's families. However, they weren't sure what actual fish to use for the fish tacos. After hearing a tall tale from Hailey's father, they decide to go after the fabled fish he met and end up on a boat with his brother to try and catch it. They end up meeting the giant fish, who ends up saving Beta, causing Hailey to realize that the fish was actually a hero who saved her father in the past, instead of terrorizing him. In the end, they use some gross old fish sticks in the freezer because they don't believe that they should be trying to hunt and eat this fish who is a hero. But the special ingredients make their taco work, and they end up getting first place when the judge wants to leave for her yoga class after only trying their taco. Likely, the original Hailey won for this same reason, with nothing Hailey doing changing the outcome of this day as long as she was there to have her entry tested first. A lot of the items on this list probably operate under similar logic, things that were almost inevitable that Hailey just has to show up for, with her going out of her way to try and overdo it, and learning the simple approach was probably the best thing she could have done in the end. The third and final segment of the night followed Hailey and Scott going to an old western tourist town, with Scott worried that it might be haunted because Hailey called it a ghost town. Hailey is here specifically to get a plastic sheriff's badge and check it off her list, with Hailey being the oldest kid there even trying to get the badge. Because of the natural coordination that comes with age, she ends up beating the kids easily at the various games that the cowboy town has, taking away a lot of the fun for the other kids along the way. Hailey, by rule of law, earns the sheriff's badge, and though she gets that checked off her list, she ends up continuing to overindulge in her role as sheriff. This takes a wacky turn when Scott posts a video of him riding on the dirt mounds and a bunch of dirt bikers show up. This is against the rules of the cowboy town, and these wild dirt bikers end up tearing the place apart. Hailey is unironically given the job of stopping the dirt bikers, but the only way Scott thinks they can do this is by out-extreming them. Hailey remembers that she is hardcore and has fought robots, so she challenges the dirt bikers to out-extreme them. Hailey rides a frightening horse to achieve this, one we humorously learn was abandoned by a boy who went on to be a dirt biker himself, so the horse has extra motivation to work with Hailey. Together, they out-extreme the bikers, and Hailey earns the badge, despite not really learning not to show up the other kids or making it right by them. Now, a lot of people were calling this Rick and Morty for Disney girls, but the future Hailey, called the Professor, has been absent from the story after setting up the plot. I do imagine she will be recurring, but instead of it being about the Professor and Hailey going on adventures each week, the Professor will probably pop in for important event episodes and perhaps appear more regularly if the show gets into some sort of final season type plot. The show instead seems to focus largely on the romance between Scott and Hailey, which is already being wrecked by Christine. While she hasn't appeared in the 2 segments that followed the premiere, she's a funny character for Hailey to interact with, and I'd like to see what happens with her and Scott. As the series progresses, they will all inevitably find some drama, and the narrative is really just a big sci-fi adventure with lots of shipping and awkward romance set up for the big ending. In addition to that, I'm hoping we get more robots too, though perhaps like with the Professor, they will only be appearing for important event episodes that really move the plot forward. We got more episodes coming next week, so hit that subscribe button if you like the show, and maybe we'll talk about those too. See you guys then!